Okay, ready.
Good evening and welcome back. My name's Matthew McLaughlin,
And I'm Daniel Sandner.
and we have some notes for...
Wicked.
Yeah.
What's happening?
Yeah, we got some notes for Wicked, all right.
Matthew,
Yeah?
we talked about this, but buddy,
What?
you have a fiance now. Size doesn't matter anymore.
Well, I mean, it kind of does. I mean, look how big it is.
Hey, broom size? No, it's how you use it. You can fly with a smaller broom.
All right, I guess you're right. Give me a sec.
Okay.
You
Take
wanna
all
tell
the time
'em-
you need.
You want to tell them about the podcast?
I will tell them about the podcast. Welcome back, everyone, to the We Have Notes podcast, where we talk about movies. We talk about the movies that we see each week, and we give them a little bit of a review. So at the end of the podcast, we will rate this movie, and it will go on our Letterboxd profile, giving it a 1 through 5 star rating. So, excellent. You good? Did you trade your broom out? Are we
yeah,
set?
I guess I got one more
Dude,
appropriate.
It looks great.
You think so?
Yes.
I think it's a little small, but I don't know. You think you get the job done?
It's okay. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder,
I think
or the
it's
broom holder.
In the broom holder, the eye of the broom holder.
It is beautiful.
Yes. So we just left the theater. We saw Wicked, based on it was a play. Yeah, it was Broadway, wasn't it?
Came out of a book.
Wait, seriously?
It's, I think, a series of like 4 or 5. My niece is going to kill me because she loves everything to do with Wicked. I think it's 4 books or 5 books. And then it was adapted into a musical and then adapted into a movie.
Wait, seriously?
I think so.
I had no idea there was a
on-
book in there, too.
Yeah, because it was obviously a spin-off from the source material. So whoever wrote Wizard of Oz, I don't know the author's name, in the 30s or something. And then this was kind of a readaptation, origin story of that, and then opened up to a musical, and here we are in movie land. So
Did the original writer write the book Wicked as well? Like, is it all his
no,
idea?
no, it was a readaptation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
so it's kind of like fan stuff.
Kinda, because the original book, from what I know, is very childish. It's very just whimsical and innocent and everything. And the Wicked books, I know, are not as much. That
Gotcha.
As far as I'm aware, if they were adapted completely, honestly, at least a part of them would be maybe R-rated in the theater. So I know they're not particularly. They're like young adults or maybe on the older
You
end of
saying
that.
the Wizard of Oz is smutty?
Not the wizard. But I'm pretty sure Elphaba has like a little love affair with the Tin Man, and I'm not even kidding there. So we've got the cats.
He's tearing something up. Bubba. Nope.
Sorry.
If you need to jump through, now's a good time.
No. I gotta put the cookies on the thing.
Yeah, no, you're good.
Okay, so we got that figured out. The wizard isn't smutty, but
I
witches
think it's
are?
Elphaba. I don't quote me on it, but to my knowledge, yeah. So in part 2, I don't know how loyal they're going to be to the source material, but I know that it gets a little adult in the books.
Oh Lord. Okay, yeah, I had no idea.
Yep.
And I think that's a good way to get into this. What are your first impressions on the movie Wicked?
Totally. No, I think that's good because, full disclosure, I am not a Wicked fanboy. I know really nothing about the play except for the leads and Stephen Schwartz music because it's great music, but I know nothing. So yeah, judging it purely off the movie in an attempt to not draw any other parallels, I was thoroughly surprised. I thought it was a good time. I thought it was well done. It was colorful. It was what I would hope a Wizard of Oz movie would be. I enjoyed it. I thought it was good.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I knew nothing about Wicked except there was a theater fan's wet dream. But that's it, to be honest. I knew nothing else besides that. I knew that it was based on The Wizard of Oz, and it had this origin story, kind of a prequel style, and that was it. As far as how the story goes, as far as cameos and all that stuff, no clue. So went into it with a completely open mind.
Yeah.
And I would say it was a good time. I definitely have notes on this one, for sure.
Me
But
too.
it was a better time than I expected. I definitely see why people enjoyed this movie and why it's been in theaters for 3 months now.
A while.
Came out in November last year, and they were recording this at the beginning of February.
Well, because
So
we,
close to
for
3
everyone
months.
who doesn't know, we were really, neither one of us had a whole lot of interest in seeing this movie. And so
true.
we were desiring to see something in theaters, and it's still in theaters. And we didn't really need to see Sonic the Hedgehog 3 or anything else that's out right now. So
Yeah, no.
we got Wicked, and I don't regret anything.
I don't
know.
either.
I thought that was actually a really good movie for a big screen.
I would agree. There was a lot of spectacle here that the original Wizard of Oz couldn't really show. It didn't. The reason Wizard of Oz is so, you know, well known and why it's so impactful for years and decades and a century. Well, not a century yet, but you know, we're getting there.
We're so close.
We're so close to that thing being a century old and still relevant. Was because it pushed the boundaries. And this movie, I'm not going to say it pushed the boundaries, but it was able to show off the world that everybody lived in, the wonderful Wizard of Oz and everything, in a way that they just couldn't do back then. You know, there's CGI now, there's facial tracking, there's all the different things that go into being able to tell a story like this. And I'm happy to know that this movie, while seeing it in theaters, wasn't a CGI fest. It was well used and fantastical and added to the story, and there was so much practical. I was so happy with that. The set design, the costumes, which I think that the Emerald City was them just trying to get an Oscar for costume design. If they get it, I think that's actually well deserved because I think the costumes were entertaining and very unique and everything. So
Absolutely. Yeah, it was a budget well spent. You could tell it
I would
was
agree.
taking, you know, the whimsy and the ideas behind something like The Wizard of Oz and putting some money behind it, putting some, you know, pretty good star power and some great ideas. Yeah, absolutely. It's no wonder it's up for like 10 Oscars or whatever it is.
is
For-
it? Do you know,
It's
do
up
you
for
know
a
which
lot of
ones
Oscars.
which ones it's up for?
I know Best Actress. Probably it might even be up for Best Picture. I would hope it would be up for costume design, set design, maybe adapted screenplay.
Do you think supporting actress?
Maybe. Yeah, Ariana might have an Oscar nod there too.
I was gonna say because if we were gonna talk about one of my favorite parts, it would be Ariana,
Really?
which I didn't expect.
Okay.
You know, I don't
Let's get
keep-
into that because I disagree with you.
Okay. I don't keep up with celebrities. Like, pretty much at all. I'll see, you know, what everybody else sees. Something pops up on a Facebook feed or Instagram or something, and you hear little snippets about celebrities' lives. So, when they came out with this movie, I remember seeing the casting. I only saw the trailer, so it's not like I was keeping up with it. But when the trailer came out and Ariana Grande was in there, I was like, really? I mean, we all know that she actually can sing. You know, that's not a fault, and it's a musical, so that's natural. But as far as everything else, I'm pretty dang sure that she is basically known for breakups with boyfriends and, you know, changing her look constantly. So I didn't really expect there to be anything here. I didn't really expect there to be substance. What I had forgotten was that she played, what was it, Kat on Victorious, which
Oh.
I used to watch back in the day. And she was a total ditzy, funny, but not somebody to kind of crap on kind of character, if that makes sense. Like, she did it really well. And I feel like this was going back to that a little bit. I don't know. Maybe it's because I used to watch Victorious, but this brought me back to that.
That's cool. That's
'Cause-
cool. I didn't watch Victoria, so that's a good perspective.
Yeah, it was cool because she was able to play this character, and she did such a good job. I thought she was hilarious. Actually, I thought she was genuinely funny. I'd say if there was a critique, it would be that some of the times the high-pitched vocals I just couldn't hear. I don't know if that was, you know, my own ears, the audio in the theater, or maybe it just was high and there's not much dictation you can do there. But there were some times where I was like, what did she say in the high notes? But to me, that's pretty much it. Otherwise, like her gags of you'll be great at sports, and she throws the ball up like spinning it and it just totally misses, I thought was hilarious. I was cracking up in my seat when that happened for whatever reason. When they're on the floor and it's a top-down angle and Elphaba's lying straight and then she is like skirting across the floor. That was really funny. And I didn't expect that at all. I really didn't. So it definitely showed that I don't know if that's her origins, but that's just what I knew her from, was Kat back in Victorious. That she played that character and she brought a little bit of that to this. But she also was serious enough. Like, it's so easy to take somebody ditzy and then they're just kind of a throwaway character and nobody takes anything they say seriously and they have no weight behind anything that happens. And I'll give Ariana credit. That wasn't the case. Like, when you see her as Galinda in her bubble and everything, where she can cast spells and all that at the beginning of the movie, she is recognized and treated by everybody. And she holds the stature of somebody who is to be respected, who has the power and all that. So the fact she was able to do both, be the goofy college kid who loves pink, but then also show and have the respect for the character that was originally in the movie, the Wizard of Oz itself. I was stunned. I really thought she killed it, to be honest.
Okay, okay. I think the only reason I did not like Ariana Grande's performance was actually, I guess, less of her performance. I thought that musically she wasn't quite up to par because you had
Okay.
Cynthia Erivo, the gal playing Alphaba, and then the one thing I do know about the actual Wicked show, and it's that Kristen Chenoweth, the gal who plays her in the show, is like the best part of the whole show. And I've seen some scenes of her acting about, and of course, Popular is a big one in that one too. And that's the one that most people know when they think of musical theater and Wicked, myself included. And I think that Ariana played it very differently, and I thought that was good. She definitely brought out her own style, and I agree. The ball thing was hilarious, and scooting across the floor and the fun props. I think part of it, what killed maybe just that sequence for me, was how they broke it up. There were a lot of gaps in between parts of it, and that's kind of a peppy sequence. We can talk about that later because I have more notes on that one. But I think that touching to your vocal thing, I noticed the same thing. She didn't have the belting qualities that
Yeah.
a lot of not only Broadway singers have, but that Elphaba had. In her moments when she'd hit those high notes, she wouldn't go into her head voice where it's this wispy kind of thing. She would belt it. It would come from her diaphragm. It would be loud. It would be powerful. But Ariana, especially in the beginning, was lost in that for sure. And she didn't have a whole lot of diction anyways in any of her songs. And so she was hard to understand and wispy and kind of weak.
Yeah.
And then when you juxtapose that to Cynthia Erivo, it felt weird.
Yeah, you know how you pointed that out. Cynthia, I didn't know her name.
Yeah, I
but-
just know it because it's a fun name to say.
Yeah, Cynthia Erivo.
Cynthia Erivo.
Yes. She did a really good job
She did a
singing.
great job. Oh my gosh.
I don't know if we're done with Ariana because we can go to Cynthia next. But as far as Ariana, I think that she's probably the biggest surprise to me, really. But yeah, we can move on to Cynthia. And
Okay.
I thought that, I don't want to put this. I think that there were kind of three distinct sections of her acting that, for me as a viewer, not knowing anything about the story, made me feel a little confused and not really knowing what to think. There was the first half where she is, the second sister, where her dad's even putting her down and everything, and she's pretty jaded, and I don't really know how to describe it, but there was something that she brought to the character that, I don't know, it felt misplaced for some reason. I can't really describe it, but there was a feeling, a look in her eyes, a stance in her posture that was, I don't know. It was like, look at me, bad stuff has happened to me, and everybody else kind of needs to recognize it and give me attention for it. It's weird on that part. And then as soon as she starts, figuring out that she can be good at things, I thought that from that point until about the monkeys happening and everything, that she did a really good job. I thought that she really, really did a good job. Yeah. We got Bobo in the background. But I thought that she did a good job in that middle section. I felt like I understood her growth as a character, that she was doing a really good job and everything. But then at the end, it seemed like it was just a switch went off. And all of a sudden, she had to find something to be mad about again. It didn't make sense to me why all of a sudden, like we discovered that the wizard is doing bad things and putting these talking animals in cages so that they can't speak anymore. And she just hears that, or she doesn't even hear that, she just figures it out, and then all of a sudden, even though the wizard's still being nice to her, I thought that Jeff Goldblum was being very sincere in that role and being like, no, you can stay with us. Like, we want to do this stuff with you. Yeah, I can't cast spells. He was so humble about saying that made me think that if Elphaba would have taken a second to try to change his mind, I don't know, the wizard might have. That's the impression that I got. And instead, Elphaba was just like, I got to go sing Gravity. Let's go upstairs and be angry.
That's fair. She had to have her belting moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it was less, at least concerning her, I feel like it was less her fault and more just kind of the inherent kind of lack of how do I say this? I think the themes of the movie are ham-fisted. I think that they are you're being bludgeoned through the movie with the themes. That this is not a subtle movie in terms of, and even the show I know is kind of this way. They bludgeon you over the head with the themes that you're supposed to be getting, to the point where it feels preachy. And I think that because she is the character obviously embroiled in that the most, you feel it from her. Because I think as a performance goes, it was it was good. Like I think it was definitely I would say the strongest performance in the movie. Obviously, she'd had the most screen time, but I thought her growth was good, and you felt for her, and especially the moment where her and Glinda have that dancing sequence, and they can kind of connect is pretty cool. But yeah, those key moments definitely got a little lost, and I felt that in terms of like defining gravity in her last sequence, like that whole scene was drawn out really long. And so they took like a 6-minute song and they stretched it out to like 15 minutes, and they kept breaking this like theatrical building that happens within the song alone that shows her entire arc. And they kept being like, oh, here's some soldiers, and oh, here are monkeys, and oh, here's Jeff Goldblum's reaction. And some of that was fine. But I felt like some of those key moments kind of screwed with her intention a little bit as it was written in the music.
Yeah, like how many times did she go up into the air and then dive bomb?
She just did the
and then go up into
Superman
the air
kind of thing.
and
Yeah,
dive bomb, and then she had to get back up for the end where her
you're right.
cape got big.
We'll get to that because that's another problem. Well, so and that was something that I realized even when she had the heart-to-heart moment where Glinda was like, "Hey, let's say something that is a secret for both of us or whatever." And she says, you know, basically the story of her sister and why she feels bad about her sister being in a wheelchair, thinking that's her fault, which I thought was a really stupid thing, frankly. I mean, not to speak that. I just thought that was a really poor thing to be like, oh, I blame myself for that. And you're like, that is so not your fault. And you think it is? Like,
yeah, if Shiz was a high school, I could understand it. She's a freshman in high school.
But like as
this
an
is
adult,
a college. This is a university.
And it took the dim-witted student, the blonde next to you, to tell you that. Which I get it. It's a character building moment. I just thought it was a weak reason for her to feel the way she felt. But I think that she was dealt kind of a crappy hand in terms of maybe the pacing of her character. And I think her best moment that showed her character growth accurately and showed it in some sort of articulating way was her first song when she found out from Michelle Wu's character, what's her face, the Sorceress Supreme lady, found out from her that she was valuable, that she had value, that she was someone who was special and important, and then kind of validated some of that so she could blossom into a better character. So I don't know. I felt like it was fairly warranted. I don't know. I liked her performance, I guess is a roundabout way of saying it. And that the things that happened within the story that she had to deal with were a little weird, or at least maybe just in the movie they're portrayed weird. Maybe they're better in the show. I don't know. Maybe they just suck in general. But yeah, it felt like the hand she was dealt from time to time was different.
Gotcha.
And so maybe that impacted her opponent. That's how I took it. I thought her performance was good.
So performance, actress did a good job. It's just the director or the story or
I think the story's just a little weird. Yeah, I think it's a story thing. Because I don't know. We'll come to direction. I thought the direction was good. I mean, I thought the movie was built well. Like if you just zoom out and look at the movie, it was good. But there were definitely some of those like moral things that I personally was just like, okay, like this is what we're focusing on. And then, the way she kind of held her head at the beginning, she had that jaded approach. But then, you see her father, who's a scum of the earth dude, who's just like, oh my gosh, like, wow. I mean, I get that your wife had an affair and it's not your child, but like, damn.
But he didn't even mention that.
No, he didn't.
It was just
it never came up.
Yeah,
the fact
does he
that
even
his
know
non-green daughter was confirmed.
She's a bastard. Is that what it'd be for
Yeah.
a woman? Yeah, we'll call
Pretty
her
much.
that.
Pretty much.
He didn't
The bastard
say, the dad
child
didn't
of-
say anything like that. It was just because she was green.
Well,
and that's it.
That's what I mean about the ham-fisted part, where it just was really this, like this is what's going on, and this is the wrong thing, and it's wrong because of whatever. Like it just bludgeoned you to death to where there wasn't really any subtlety. And maybe that's in the show, like I said, maybe that's in the book. I don't know. And I get subtlety's difficult, but making your audience try to come to that conclusion over time, as opposed to just right at the beginning being like, well, she's bad because she's green and people hate her because she's green. And then the whole movie kind of builds on that sort of. And then the conclusion is like, well, she's still bad because she's different. Not just because she's green, because she's different. And you're like, okay.
Yep.
The art of subtlety, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that was my interpretation of maybe why you're feeling that way. But I totally get you. I thought she had a good performance, but that's just me.
Yeah, I definitely don't think her performance is bad. That middle gigantic chunk, the majority of the movie, I thought it was good. And maybe it's the racism that was put into the movie, because that's exactly what it is. I mean, everybody hating her just because of the literal color of her skin. You know, I'm not exaggerating by saying that's what the movie focused on for, the first third?
Yeah.
You know? So that was hard for me to watch, in the fact that I couldn't tell if modern Hollywood was getting a message out about politics in the real world, or if it was the story.
It's the story.
Okay, I've never seen Wicked.
It's in the
I've never
book.
seen it.
Because the book came out, I think the early 2000s, and it was kind of I know that there's been like critiques on the time, I guess, because that would have been Bush presidency and stuff like that. And
Right, yeah.
There's some supposed ties there and whatever, but yeah, the whole thing is that is the story
And I think that's maybe a fault right now, because I think the
for
general
the timing of it.
Yeah, because okay, I'll give a pass to this movie, because I didn't know if it was some director trying to get their own agenda out, or if it was the original. Yeah, it sounds like you said it's the original, so that's great. This movie gets a pass, but man, if that doesn't show you the timing of audiences right now, just kind of don't want to hear that. You know, we're in a time where I think everybody has the general consensus that the best way to deal with all these conflicts and everything is to not talk about it, to kind of get past it and look at each other like, everything's good, and we judge people based on their character and everything. So it's not an issue with the movie itself, because it came out at a time where that kind of needed to be said or whatever. But I think we're at a point where we just don't want to really hear that in movies anymore, because to me it felt like a Hollywood director's choice that's a trope instead of an actual message. Again, past the movie, because now I understand. But yeah, I guess this would be notes for future movies going forward. Stay away from it. People just get distracted by it, and then we're thinking about all these other things and not your movie.
Right.
So notes to future movies. Stay away from it.
Well, and therein lies this movie's going to make a lot of money, and it's going to earn a lot of awards. So there's not going to be a lesson learned. But
I know.
I think that
If they can separate it,
taking
it'll
it
be okay.
taking it on its face, any sort of my own politics or opinions aside, I think that it certainly conveys the themes well. It just does so very strongly. It does so with so much intention that it's preachy. And I think that's maybe my problem with it, is like I completely agree with them, maybe not in the way that they're necessarily intending it, but like that, people are not inherently bad because they're different. But that, the way that people's actions impact themselves and each other is really, how people should be assessed, is that it is based on somebody's merit, that it is based on their worth. And not necessarily on something as arbitrary as what they look like. But having a movie that attempts to distill that down into something so easily digestible as a bright green skin color, and then the fact that she's doing different things, that she is different from this squeaky clean kind of environment. I don't know if just because it's set within such a whimsical world that it has to be quite that intensely poignant, but something with a little more, not necessarily more interpretation, but a little less just like, this is the theme.
This is it.
Like,
Look at
here
it.
it is. Look at the theme.
Do you get it, audience?
Exactly. Like your broom at the beginning. Like, this is my broom in your face.
Yes.
So
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely ham-fisted.
yeah. So I think that's more fault of the story, but from what I understand of the books and things, that's just how it is.
Gotcha.
That is the theme, and kudos for putting your theme right up front. Maybe work a smidge harder to make it a little more subtle. Maybe a little. I don't know, because you're right. It feels preachy in today's climate, but.
How do you think if we're thinking about it from a filmmaking perspective, how could we make it more subtle? That's a challenge, because we haven't had any time to prep or anything.
Well, I mean, they were kind of stuck within the confines of, if they're doing a readaptation of Wizard of Oz, they're basically doing an origin story of the witches. So
Right.
you have to make one of them green. So really, I think your
yeah.
answer would be choose a different story, and don't tell a story about differences, because therein lies kind of another inherent problem with the story, is that now you're going into just the glorification of the villain. That it's one of those, we're learning, sort of like with Mufasa when we talked about that, we are now learning about the villain's origin story, which is fine and that's good, whatever. But we're changing that dynamic to be like, well, is anyone bad? And you're questioning, is anyone bad or are they just different?
The ending of this made you think that, oh wait, no, that means the Wizard of Oz is completely bad, and that means
Yeah.
Galinda's bad.
Right.
That's
Right.
the problem of being a part one, which that
Yeah,
anytime
we can't
I think
fully assess it, especially as people who don't really know the show.
I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen. And I think that seeing that part one up there, that's about the only thing that I knew about this movie going into it was that this was a part one. And when I found that out, I actually kind of got pissed. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, especially looking at the runtime being what 245 or
Something
something
like that.
Yeah. It
I'm
was a
like-
pretty bloated movie.
Yeah, I'm like, oh my god, can we just watch a movie and have it be finished and I get the whole story and I get to feel satisfied at the end? Like right now, I do have a lot of questions and I know that that's what the studio wants me to have.
They want you to come back for part 2.
Yeah, but I'm like, okay, you're either gonna have to execute or not, and we will spend our money
Yeah.
for it, annoyingly.
Yeah.
But how the hell are you gonna make Galinda look good? You know, you left her as the bad guy. She's
Right.
literally sitting with the bad guys, the Wizard of Oz and all
Yeah.
that. Which I don't remember the Wizard of Oz being actually a bad person in the Wizard of Oz.
I think in every interpretation we've seen, he's a sham. And so
Right,
it's not
yeah.
that he's bad. I mean, if you watch some of the ones like we were talking about, like Oz the Great and Powerful, he comes in and he's a con man. And so he comes in on a balloon and he falls into this prophecy that he doesn't really understand. And he has to put up this face that he's some big wizard, and he pulls it off with magic, essentially. He pulls it off with illusions. In this case, he pulls it off with mechanisms. And so even in the actual movie, I mean, he's a sham. I mean, who's the guy behind the curtain? And so I did like that. But yeah, that making him deliberately like conniving.
Evil,
It's like
trying to screw everybody over.
right. Well, you have the story where you've taken the people who are, or the one who was attested to be bad in the original movie and the book and everything, and yeah, you're making your audience just question like, well, is bad good? Is it bad? Are they different? Are they bad because they're different? Are they good because they're different? Is there anyone bad? Does it matter? You know,
It's
and
like, what's
maybe
the
that's the
point?
point. I don't know, but like I feel like your theme is a little bit weird when you are making people think, you know, are people bad because they're different? Because, I mean, sure, that's a good thing to ponder upon, but like in a movie, it's kind of good to have someone clearly bad or clearly good, and to be flip flopping. I don't know. It's a little weird. So I don't know. Maybe that is the sole theme, and we just came to some sort of realization, and I don't have an answer to it. But
Well,
it brings a weird question to it, especially when you know the dynamic of these witches from different.
Yeah, I mean,
aspects.
also the Wizard of Oz himself contradicted it. So he's sitting there, and the Wizard of Oz is actually talking about how he wants to take care of people, how he's a fatherly person, and because he was basically with his balloon, we have to assume a tornado, just like Dorothy, gets pulled away from his family, and he can't be the dad that he was hoping to be. That's the backstory that we get in this movie.
Right.
He then talks about how he's taking care of everybody and how Elphaba can have a home here with maybe Galinda. That was kind of a funny
Right,
joke. So
right.
We don't want her, but whatever. But yeah, she can have a home. She can be here and basically have her life at her fingertips. Then Elphaba finds out that she's doing, or that the wizard is doing this stuff to the animals and everything. And to me, it didn't seem like he was really being an evil guy. Yeah, sure, the animal stuff, yeah, that's an evil thing to do. But it really seemed like if she had just talked to him, that maybe he could have convinced him.
Right,
Or
yeah.
that Elphaba could have convinced the wizard. Because she didn't really give him any time. I think I've
Well-
said this before, but yeah, we got to go sing
Well,
Gravity.
right. Well, and so therein lies my other problem with the movie was I thought the animal part was dumb. I thought it was kind of a dumb
Yeah.
hill to die on. Not to say that like, you know, yeah, these talking animals shouldn't continue to be talking animals or whatever, but what you're laid out at the beginning by the goat professor, Peter Dinklage guy, was that they were starting to disappear because there was like a food shortage or something.
Yeah.
Which made me ultra aware of the fact that like the difference in classes shown in this movie, but we can get to that because I was like, okay, well, there's windmills out in the fields, so like, anyways, that's a whole different aside. But in terms of the his story, that's what he brought to the table in terms of why they started disappearing. And maybe again, jumping the gun, this is just in part 2, and it'll all make sense or something. But like, it felt like a really weak kind of thing to be like, okay, Oz is going to hold this over hold this over people's heads for a villain, whether that's using that to, make somebody a martyr of that. Or if he's like, no, I'm going to imprison the animals because they're bad and we're going to turn the whole world against them. I'm like, why?
Right.
What
And
were they doing?
The only justification was you need what unifies people is an enemy.
Right. And
But
you're like,
was
but
the-
why are they talking animal? Like, are they
was-
smarter than you and they're trying to overthrow? Like, they were never a threat.
Yeah, they weren't a
And
threat.
maybe that's the point. I don't
And
know.
then
But
was Oz in disrepair? Was Oz in
Right.
chaos?
Was there anything
we
wrong?
saw a thriving society with
did.
money,
Several
with
times.
food, with water, with
Right.
universities. Come on.
Right, exactly.
We have universities where the style is Hunger Games capital. I don't think anybody really needs to be united anymore.
yeah, insane opulence.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
it's-
motivations didn't make sense.
Yeah, and that animal, particularly that animal like subplot thing, I just thought was why.
Yeah.
I mean, again, it might become clear, and maybe these are the right questions to be asking. I don't know what the filmmakers intended, but it just felt really kind of peppered in there, and it was something that's like, why? I mean, we care because animals, but like, it felt like this like conservation preserve animals story thrown into this like dramatic sisterhood clashing story.
Yeah.
It was sort of like Mean Girls mixed with Harry Potter mixed with, I said Shrek, mixed with just kind of this interesting, and then there was this like conservation, like save the animals story. And especially when the professor got taken away and a new one came in and there was like the animal, that whole scene was just really weird. And they're like, oh, and the animal, and he has to be in a cage and and I'm just like, what is happening right now?
You know what's funny is
Yeah.
I was laughing about the invention of the cage,
Yeah.
this mystical thing.
And yet we have like these gear trains that run mechanical heads and we're inventing a cage.
Now, one thing that I will say is if the directors were trying to get us on the side that animal cruelty is bad, which, for the record, out of this world, does not go with animal cruelty. We think animals should be treated
Yeah.
well. Thank you, lawyers.
Not the point. We're
Not
just
the point. But if they were trying to get us on the side of the animals, they did a great job, in
Yeah.
my opinion.
Right,
The
they
fact
did,
They
they
brought
did.
in this cute CGI little kitten, you
Right.
know, that's like a tiger,
Well-
and he's in this cage, and he's like
Yeah.
all sad
They
and
were,
stuff.
it was effective. I mean, it was effective. Like the characters were great and they were well performed and everything like that. But generally speaking, I just thought the whole random plot was weird, except to give Elphaba someone to relate to commiserate with in her persecution, and then to give her the motivation to jump off from his persecution to doing something about it. Like, it was an actionary story beat, but a weird one. I'm
Yeah.
like, okay. And then I was trying to rack my brain from the original movie, like, granted, it was the 30s, so like there weren't talking animals, but they were anthropomorphized people. We had the Cowardly Lion and stuff. But like,
Yeah.
is this some tie in there? And because I don't know anything about part 2, maybe
Maybe.
these are the right questions
Is that
to
the
ask.
only reason that the lion's there? And that the
Maybe.
well, the monkeys don't talk.
Well, and then the monkeys, why did they follow her because they weren't chasing her at the end of the movie. They were kind of following her when that guy went through like this wretched pain getting his wings.
Yeah.
And you're like, what is happening? Is she for them? Is she against them?
Are they
Why
just
does she
Are they
care?
going after him? It wasn't clear.
Right.
You know,
and
it
like, is
wasn't.
she leading the animals just simply because of the same reason of they're different? Like talking animals are different and they're imprisoning all animals? And then if so, like, what do they eat? Like, are they all farmland people? Are they all vegetarians? Do they eat animals? Do they not? Do all animals talk? There's just this kind of like, well, you've introduced anthropomorphic animals and then like educated ones. Is there a hierarchy of animals? Like, what the hell? What's
Yeah.
happening right
Come
now?
on, give it. We want the juice. You
Like,
introduce
damn it, come
interesting
on, give us
concepts.
answers.
Come on.
Exactly. Well, and so that leads to the classic. Just real quick. I was noticing when they're getting on the train and they're going into the Emerald City that it's farmland all over the place, and there
Tons.
were like grist mills and things like that, and like the fields, and we kind of know that from the original movie. And then you have these super opulent people who live in the cities and in this like college town, which was just hilarious.
Little shiz.
Yeah, shiz. Exactly, full shiz. What are they doing? What's going on there? Where's the story with the people who are providing the food and the infrastructure for Oz? For these stupid rich people. Where's their story?
This is BS, man.
This is BS. Don't-
We've been
screw the
told
animals,
that
like,
we
get
have to
them.
go to 4-year college
Yeah.
in Oz. What about the blue collar?
What about the blue collar
What about
workers?
the blue collar?
What about the
Ozians?
people of Oz that keep Oz running and open and fed and watered, and we're here fending for the animal professors?
Damn it! Where's
and that's
the
great.
micro of Oz?
Yeah.
Where's the dirty jobs?
So okay,
Come on.
so therein lies kind of the question though. Why couldn't it have been the people of Oz? And is that simply more because of the fact that in the ending story, she doesn't give, two craps about the people who live in Oz? Maybe there's an animal thread there that I don't remember from the original movie, but like, why wasn't she fighting for the other? Is that because that couldn't happen in college? And they're like, okay, so what can we throw in here that can tick her off as being different? Animal professor. To me, that just seems hokey.
It
and
sounds
it's a
like-
weird beat, and it's just weird. I don't know. I have a problem with the animal.
It sounds like
animal
there
actors
was
here.
a boardroom of everybody where they needed to make the movie runtime longer, and they needed different reasons for other things to happen, and they were like, you know what? What's something that everybody can rally behind? And they were like, animal cruelty, and
Yeah.
it went no further than that. They're
Yeah.
just like, how do we do it? Well, there's the cowardly lion, so we need to make talking
Right.
animals. What's interesting is that I actually didn't hate the Peter Dinklage goat. I thought that he was actually kind of cool.
He was cool. He was cool.
And the little
characters
thing
were fine.
about
Yeah.
them like having to talk kind of in secret because they don't know what's happening to them. They know it's happening, but they don't know
Is
why
he
it's
making
happening.
6 figures
I hope.
as a
I hope.
professor goat?
Well, did you see his fit?
He was fit. Sorry, continue.
Yeah.
What's his salary, man?
I want to know more about that. To be honest, I really do.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know more about that plot line. It's like you get an introduction and you don't get anything afterwards, and it's just frustrating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm guessing part 2 will open it up and just not knowing anything.
I hope so. I
maybe,
want to
but
see that. Was
it
it a
just was
snow
a-
leopard professor?
Yeah,
That
yeah,
guy was cool.
They were all really well, and like the CGI was awesome, and the
was
voice
sick.
acting was great, and they were really cool. But just it felt really weird.
Dude, Planet of
As
the
someone who
Apes
doesn't know.
walked so Wicked could run. With the apes and everything.
Apes together strong.
Apes together, strong, and fly, or something. I don't know.
I'm sure. Yeah, and they didn't talk. I guess they didn't talk in the original movie.
That's
either.
true, and that's I guess part of the confusion is like, why didn't they? Or
Why some ape talk and some not?
Why some ape talk? Where's Caesar? Jeff Goldblum, he tried to say something about it. I can't remember it exactly, but it was like he hasn't said stuff in years for fear of something, or I can't remember. It was like they're half-assed
Trying to patch the plot holes.
trying to patch the plot hole, and it just didn't work. It was like, so there was just a choice, but what about all the other monkeys? Because they're there, and they look like they're younger than him, not as jaded, so do they talk?
Right.
If not,
Well, yeah, and the timeline of him being human, and then there's all these magical stories and the prophecy, and where does this all fall? And yeah, there's a lot of technical loops that it's it's a kid's story from the essence of it,
Yeah,
and
you know,
readapted for this. So
I get the
I don't
feeling
know.
like what you and I want is a Wicked movie, not a Wicked musical. Spend the music time
Okay.
on the story.
Okay, all right,
That's what I'm wondering
That's
if
a
that's
hot
what we
take.
want.
That's a hot take. Okay, I only know Wicked because of the music, personally, in terms of the story. I know the music. I don't know anything else, and that's because your boy Steven Schwartz, who wrote amazing stuff like Pippin, and he wrote Prince of Egypt, and he's done like some amazing stuff. Dude, the music is great. But I see your point. I'm not looking for like a watertight thing, but like my CinemaSins side is coming out where it's like, what? Why? Like, why did these things do this, but they don't do this? And why this, but not this? And then, at the end of the day, we're just being dicks.
I was
But,
thinking about that with the train the
Yeah.
entire time. I was like, there is no way that this would stay lubricated with all this airflow. The amount of bugs that they would have on that and the danger.
the open gears on the front, and they only went like 3 city blocks to the Emerald City. Why couldn't
Yeah.
they have walked?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. But that's okay. Well, let's all that aside. In terms of the watertight logic of this movie, I think that they did a pretty good job tying in the things that were little like musical motifs to the original movie, which was cool. There were lots of, I suppose, nods to the musical from what I little bit know. And so like it wasn't like how did Rafiki get his staff? Well, here's how he got
He found it.
Right, exactly. I think that the limited bit I know from the musical, it was true to the musical. The limited bit I know to the book, it was true to the book. And I guess if it's watertight within its own universe, and then we watch it and it makes no sense, but oh well, it's fun. Fine, I think I'll give a musical a pass in that way. But I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you other thoughts on that?
I thought that this movie was unfortunately burdened with having to burn the first 20 minutes, maybe, of
Before you even got a
screen
title?
run. Yeah, it was burdened with it because you had to show where Galinda was because she's telling all the Munchkins the story, and you have to see how Elphaba grew up and how she doesn't know how to use her powers and it's mainly just through anger and there's some direction there, and you kind of have to see those things. But the movie doesn't start until Galinda's running her fingers through the water. Yeah, like 20 minutes in. Again, there's nothing really wrong with the beginning because you kind of have to show that stuff for people like us who've never seen it. But it did feel like the people making it wish it wasn't there. Not that they did a bad job executing the beginning. It just was like, I wish it could have been Wicked Part 2. Part
Yeah.
1, son of a gun.
Yeah.
And then it's just Galinda's hands in the water. And
Right.
it just kicks right off of college.
I agree. I think the movie definitely suffered a little bit from our modern day trends of bloatedness, where every song had not just like musical interludes, but they had like unnecessary story beats baked in. I mentioned it with Popular, where that song it's like a 2.5 minute song in the actual, like unabridged. It's like 2.5 minutes. But this one was like, it was like a 6 minute sequence where they took moments of the song and they broke them up for like little gags of suitcases opening. The ending, I mean, Defying Gravity, seriously, was like 15 minutes.
If you don't mind,
Sure.
I think those are the two things we should talk about in this. The Popular sequence, I was actually fine with it being long. I was sitting there and I was like, all right, they're going with the quirky suitcases. There's a reason that she has all of this crap that's taking up the entire apartment. Like, I thoroughly enjoyed the entire sequence. Defying Gravity, continue.
Sure. See, and Defying Gravity was, where we kind of said they were interjecting like soldiers coming to them. And she did all these weird loop-de-loops for no reason. She's just like, get off the freaking balcony and fly away already.
Do a backflip.
Use the music the way it was written and intended for your growth. The 5 minutes of growth, not the 15. And I think you talking at the intro is the same way, that it was great. I don't think that any of the sequences were bad.
Right.
And I don't, even in the moment, I didn't really notice how long they were until we got like 2.5 hours in and I'm like, we're still going at this. And I did remember checking my watch a couple times because some of the sequences were just so kind of scattered. And they were gorgeous. They were fun, like Popular. That was a great sequence. And she put all of her own twists and it was quirky and all of that. But the sequences were just so stretched for whatever reason, both musically like spaced, but just stretched out to more and more and more and more. That a lot of the momentum that's built into the music felt like it wasn't being utilized. And so it made for this kind of wonkiness of, well, the songs were all necessary because they were all original from it. And so there were growth, like the one in the library. There were a lot of story beats to cover. But it was still
was a good
really
sequence.
long. It was a great
I'm
sequence.
glad you brought that
but
up.
it was still very long because
Yes.
there was that moment where, was that Elphaba and her sister talked? Maybe that wasn't during the song. But there was some moment where they kind of finished up their main dance sequence. Everyone went outside, and then there was something, and then they came back, and they started doing it again where it was between her and the hotshot guy.
Yeah.
And it just kept going. And you're like, okay, we're still going. With stuff like that. And then by the time it was done, it was a 3-hour movie of a part 1. And you're like, damn.
Also, I think that Munchkin guy, he's got to have something in part 2, right? Because he did nothing.
Yeah.
There was nothing in this movie. There was no reason for him to
Googled
exist.
over Ariana Grande all movie while he had this attractive gal in the wheelchair who seemed pretty great to me. I don't know. Man, I would have chosen her over Ariana Grande any day. She was cute.
That's how Daniel rolls.
It is.
Anyway, let's see. What were we?
So other sequences, the beginning sequence. Donde está the Munchkins?
Dude, yes, let's talk about that. We had Munchkin Land, and there were people there.
Yeah, and he got on
there
2 books, and he was just a short king. Come on.
Yeah, and then later I think he was the same height.
Yeah, he totally was.
There were only 4 actual Munchkins in the entire movie.
Yeah.
And one of them was a goat.
One of them. Yeah, it's true. Well, and it like harkens back to the Snow White problem that we have nowadays, where they remade it 30 times because of all the offensive crap that Rachel Ziegler she's a moron. Anyways, and so why not actually get people who are actually predisposed for that role?
Loves to talk about diversity, but it seems like if you're below a certain height, you don't get the part.
Well, and it's a genuine question. Like, if in a way that did someone deem it offensive? Was it a higher up, or was it actually the actors?
Well,
or
it
was
makes me wonder.
Was it because if they called it Munchkin Land still,
Yeah.
then clearly it wasn't that offensive or something. Or was it because of the rumors of the old movie where they mistreated them or something? Like, I'm seriously curious to know why it was just real people in Munchkin
wouldn't be
Land.
surprised if
Not
it's
real people,
that
but
damn
tall
goat.
people.
Peter Dinklage. As
It
far
might
as
be.
far as I
He's pretty
understand,
outspoken about about actors.
As far as I understand, he has so much power in Hollywood that that's why Snow White originally didn't hire them. It was his call. Now, I'm going to go out and say that what a dick move, Peter Dinklage, to go out and say that you're the only short king who can get any parts. I don't want to use the words because we're trying to keep it like, but F you, dude.
Right.
I don't know what's going on, but people in general struggle, you know? So to go out and say that other people that are, you know, short kings themselves, short queens themselves, and they're not allowed to have the part too? Screw you, man. Are you
I don't
kidding
know.
me?
If it was, I have no idea.
Because how many munchkins were there? That was like 60, 80 extra roles
And it could
of
have
dancers.
been logistical, but like
It could have been.
if they
there
could
was
pull it off
logistics
in the
and stuff.
30s, then they're statistically, I suppose it's true. I don't know. I really don't know, but it was funny.
Yes.
It was interesting that they're like, yeah, munchkins, they're just adults.
They're just regular dudes.
Great dancers.
Great
just
dancers.
Adults.
But just regular.
Yeah.
Yeah, it felt weird again. It's like we're trying to have all this inclusive mentality, but it's like we're still just, yep, short people, you're not included. I don't get it. I really just don't. It makes no sense to me. So, yeah, I'm glad we touched on that. Especially, it was really weird, especially because when we get to the Emerald City, there's 3 of them that run across the screen. You see them
Yeah.
for half a second.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, you are okay hiring them, but wait, not for the big roles and not for the things that actually make sense?
Yeah, within the story. I don't know.
What?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that was a weird one.
I don't get it, you know?
Well, and even like the discrimination subplot where like they get to the dance party and there's a whole musical band of animals playing, and yet they also stop playing when Elphaba walks in and she's just green.
Animals are racist.
I guess so. I
They're
don't know.
racist
But
animals.
when they
Maybe
walked in,
that's why Oz is locking them in
Maybe.
cages, because they're racist.
maybe they are. I don't know. But they walked into the sequence and everyone, you know, stopped dancing. But like the animals, in theory, they're in the same boat, right? So why are they going to stop playing?
I didn't even think
because
about
of a
that, to be
green
honest.
gal and they're animals. There's what, like a wombat playing the drum set? I don't remember.
Oh, yeah,
There's
the
like a
flying
sugar
squirrel
glider
or-
or
yeah,
something.
sugar
Yeah,
glider. It's a sugar
And I'm
glider.
like, so what? Everyone in there sucks, man. And then at the end of the scene, they do the little dance, and then everyone's like, "Yeah, we're good. We're doing it too." And if I were Elphaba, I would be like, "Screw you, people."
Are you kidding me?
Like, I don't care if you think you had to change your heart. You're just going with the flow.
I
Screw
shake
you.
my elbows
Yeah,
and y'all are chill with me?
exactly.
Is that what I should have
I
done
don't
day
know.
one instead
I
of
don't
cool
know.
magic?
That's
Man,
it.
screw you guys.
Screw your elbows.
You know what's funny, talking about that dance scene, is it didn't hit me.
Which one?
The one with where she the music comes
Oh,
down
they're
and all
dancing.
that
They're
stuff.
little.
Yeah, and then Ariana steps out, which
Mm-hmm.
I will admit that's a great character moment because we've just kind of seen that she's a little bit helpful, but kind of self-centered and uppity, blah blah blah. But that even to her, I hated the Asian fashion guy. I hated him, and that's the point. I'm pretty damn sure. I hated that guy. He pissed me off every time he was on screen.
That was probably the point, but yeah, he was annoying.
But yeah, for Ariana's character, for Galenda to step out amongst the rest of the crowd because she's popular and make her thing okay, that was a good character moment. The dance just didn't hit me. And I think this is a weird moment that I just need to recognize as somebody who just watches movies, that it's a difference in who the movie's made for. It didn't hit me, and it's not a bad scene. It just flat out isn't. The acting, chef's kiss. They did a great job, but I just felt nothing.
Well, and at the
whole
end of the
time.
day, it is a chick flick. I mean, that's kind of why I said Mean Girls a little bit, and it's good. I mean, it's definitely can cater to the whole audience, but I mean, it's a budding friendship kind of thing between 2 gals, and it definitely leans
And they
into
were
like the school.
roommates.
Yes. It leans into that almost like a Legally Blonde kind of thing, where it leans into the school dynamics and it leans into that kind of thing. And I still enjoyed it. I thought it was fine.
Yeah.
But moments like that, where you're having, you know, they have their gossip moments and they have their things like that, and that's obviously not necessarily that it doesn't relate. It has its place and everything, but yeah, I wouldn't say that it hit me particularly hard because that's not something I do at sleepovers, or that, you know, in terms of the whole Song of Popular is obviously a different one. It's entertaining, but yeah, the moment where they dance, it's different. I liked that it was completely nonverbal, that it had to rely on, especially for Ariana Grande, actually physically showing her change, and I thought that was cool. But yeah, it was different. And I'd
Yeah.
love to know kind of the reasoning behind it and the dance, because I think it would have had more impact had it had been something like maybe Elphaba knew from something else. Maybe it was like a dance she did to calm herself down, or maybe so it had some reason to exist.
The dance itself
Yeah.
had significance.
And so she was there,
Yeah, I
like
think
strutting
so.
her stuff because she was confident in this dance, or it meant something.
Mm-hmm.
And then that had a little more weight, but it was kind of like this weird chicken dance thing. Yeah. So the dance scene was weird for me a little bit. I thought that it was a nice, impactful moment. It was refreshing in the movie to have a slower sequence, but I don't know. It just was. I felt like it could have had more power to it. Personally, I thought that it was nice to not have words. It was nice to not have singing convey. It was quiet. But then, yeah, it just irked me so much when they left the club or wherever they were, the underwater ice cave looking place. And then everyone was like joining in and like dancing. And you're like, you people suck though, because you were just pointing and laughing at her recently.
Yeah.
I'm like, these stupid people.
Yeah, nobody's got a backbone. Somebody be an asshole
Yeah.
to her. Come on.
Keep it up. Come on, guys.
Yeah, I think for the Asian fashion guy, again, hated him, and that was the point. I recognize that. I think that him going like, okay, I guess this is the cool thing that we have to do now. That was fine because it shows he has no backbone. He's a total fake friend.
Right,
He's
complete
just gonna
pushover.
blow with the wind or whatever. But yeah, it just didn't hit me as hard, and I definitely see how it would hit people. And I'm not gonna knock the movie because it didn't hit me on this one because I recognize it'll be good for others. But that's kind of how I felt. We talk about defying gravity, the end of the whole movie and everything. Nothing.
Yeah.
I felt absolutely.
You could tell the
nothing.
sequences as they went on, where like the library sequence was easily one of the best ones, I think. And then
Best
as
set
the
piece.
movie went on, yeah, well, and it got more. Defying Gravity it wasn't bad, but it got to be kind of the CGI slogfest. I mean, the lighting and stuff was still cool, but like between the random interjection from soldiers, the kind of lack of forward push, it got louder and louder, I guess, but it kept getting interjected. And then the stupid cape where like Ariana puts the cape on her and it's a normal cape, and then she kicks out of the window and now it's like freaking 30 feet long, and then she's flying and now it's like 60 feet long. I'm like, what is happening? So the cape was dumb. But yeah, the whole ending Defying Gravity sequence was.
But don't you understand with the cape? That was her magic. She had just blown out all the lights, and she decided that she wanted an ungainly large cloak to have the effect on everybody.
Two words. No capes.
No capes. No capes.
Yeah, it was a weird sequence.
I agree. I think that it was so close to being absolutely amazing. And I totally, this is again another one because they did all of they combined theater impact with movie impact. They had all of the singing and the high pitched and the belting and the close up face and giving them their moment mixed with the boom, bah, check this shot out. And they mixed the two. And I think that might have been the problem for me.
Really?
Maybe. That's not a fully formed thought.
That's okay. That's okay. I agree. I think the impactful moments were impactful. The ones where they're like, yes, this is a movie and we can do this and we have money. I think so. That's something you just can't do in a stage play. Like, we have this giant set piece, we're gonna use it. So I see kind of what you mean.
I think the only part that really annoyed me with the whole Defying Gravity was her falling before she flew, where she
And
jumps out
seeing
the
her
window
reflection of her kid in the window, and you're like, okay,
and she's falling for 10 days. And then she does the standard thing of
yeah,
boom.
right.
Snaps
Literally the
her
Superman
neck,
thing. Yeah.
Gets 20 G's to the neck.
Well,
Somehow
she does it at the end of the
survives.
movie too, where she does the sonic boom. She's
Oh yeah, we just didn't get the
off into the sunset. And you're like, okay, I guess this is
just
how.
missing the actual boom and the flare and stuff.
I guess she's just gone Mach 2.
Yep. There goes Alphaba Mach 2 with no shades. Oh yeah, eyes wide open.
yeah.
Maybe that's why
Bugs.
she was crying.
They talking bugs? I don't know. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. You know what I will give credit though, and we could talk about this more cinematography. I felt like with each of the sequences, while they were generally too long and some of them a little weird in the tone, like that one, just like, okay, why? I felt like I was fully a member of each sequence. I thought that the camera work in each sequence was really good, that the Steadicam operators and the boom operators need a raise because holy hell, that was so good. Some of those they weren't oneers, but they were these complete takes of the cameraman dancing around the sequence and through people and all this. I felt like the camera movements, especially in those sequences, were really dynamic and really fun. It didn't just screech out cinema where it's like cut, 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 cut. They let the actors be the actors, the dancers be the dancers. They put the camera up high to show the scale of all the real dancers doing their thing in there. And it was shot very much like old cinema in that way, where the only way to do it is to have 200 dancers do it and to linger on that because, extra takes mean extra money. So let's just keep it as this uncut take. And I thought that was really beautiful. And then when it got crazy and like in the library scene and the camera was weaving through the rotating like barrel centrifuge kind of things, it was really cool. It was appropriate, and it made you feel like you were gliding through the scene and you were an active member in this sequence. So for those bits, and I think that was present in pretty much every sequence, I did enjoy that.
I actually remember thinking that the cameramen look like they're having fun. I think it was the library scene because when that first happened,
It was a great example of it, yeah.
so good. When we first came into the library, my first thought was, wait, you have circular things. The books are going to fall when it goes upside down. That was my first thought. And then luckily, that was just kicked out of the theater because it was like, let's have fun. Mm-hmm. And you could tell they built the real set and they trained on them. The one move of the Prince guy that really jumps out to me is I think he was on the ladder and it's like rotating and he jumps to one side.
Yeah.
The ladder then at that point, the other side had rotated and he catches it and stands up all slick.
It was entirely like Cirque du Soleil stuff. It was
so good. It was so sick. The cameraman was having fun. The people that built the set did a great job.
It's like the choreographer. It's like between the set building and set direction on like, okay, we have to design these sets to do these because the choreographers say that this is what the choreography is going to be in the set. And the cameramen were also in the choreography meetings and practices to be choreographed. And it just was perfect. That like, it was a perfect use of the sets by the choreography and the cameramen were part of the choreography as if they were dancing too. And it was great. It was like
such a good
quintessential good musical direction. Whether, in terms of a play or in terms of a movie, like it just worked really well together. It was well used and well directed and well just done.
Yeah.
From start to finish there.
I don't want to move on too fast from the library scene because it deserves credit. That scene was so good. I was enjoying myself the whole time. But I want to talk about the Prince, which is that, dude, he was not, again, modern Hollywood. I really expected this to be a modern Hollywood movie. Mm-hmm. There's connotation that comes by saying that. And he wasn't somebody that just got stepped on and laughed at and was just there to be handsome. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
He willingly admitted, like, yeah, I am self-absorbed. Like, that's his character. We got character definition from somebody who's self-absorbed, and it was charming. And I don't know. We got an actual Prince dude who's doing his own thing. He was a character. He wasn't just a caricature.
You want my hot take?
Tell me.
I thought he was unnecessary.
Maybe unnecessary since he... Well, actually, let me think about this.
He created a little bit of a love triangle between the girls. Mm-hmm. About it.
Do you think... Is that an opinion that could change depending on part 2? Or do you think unnecessarily?
Maybe.
Totally?
Maybe. He's definitely kind of the quintessential handsome guy in the two lead females movie where he is the love triangle and like fine, but I felt like I was racking my brain. He shows up randomly and then he has his whole suave scene where there's a lot of exposition in that scene. That's fine. There's some growth between Glinda when she starts liking him, changing things, changing herself, and there's change. Like he's a facilitator of change, but like it could have been done by anything else, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, even his sequence with the little like cub. Cool. Now that means that Elphaba has kind of the hots for you, and then no one ever did anything about anything, and for some reason he didn't like Glinda for a while, and then Elphaba like gave him a wink, and then that was it. And you're like,
it's
okay.
Because the smut is in part 2.
I guess
this is just the lead up.
So he could, come in his sequence and flirt with both the guys and the gals, and then
oh yeah, that's true. That was so dumb.
It was different, but
that was the most theater part of this entire thing. Was the fact that the straight guy was flirting with the gay guys.
Yeah. Well, and it's whatever. I can forgive that to an extent because it wasn't obnoxious or anything. It just was interesting that he was just like, I am so suave. I'm pulling both sides. But
I got both.
I just still
first bi Prince.
Maybe. I just fully think that he was kind of a wash of a character. I wouldn't say that he would like inspired so much change or so much whatever in any of the characters that they couldn't have done it a different way.
You know, I haven't seen The Little Mermaid remake, but I imagine that he is what they were trying to do for Prince Eric.
Maybe.
Because as far as I understand, I mean, Prince Eric in the animated Little Mermaid really didn't do much. He was the
He's
pretty
a
face.
very useless character, and then he drives a
that's
boat
it.
into Ursula, and that's great.
That's great.
Yeah.
And then I think, again, I haven't seen The Little Mermaid, but talking to Miranda about it, they tried to give him depth, and it just didn't work. And I think what they were trying to do is what the prince was in this movie. He had enough depth. At least he actually was a character.
Right. He's fleshed out to the extent he needed to
He's
be, I
fleshed out
guess.
to the extent, and I liked him. You know, I thought he was
He
entertaining.
was fine. He was entertaining. I just didn't think he was necessary.
Yeah.
Like, he was... Maybe they could have taken it a step further to where it was maybe too schmoozy and, like, one of them would have kissed and the other one was jealous or something, and you could have done that. And I'm kind of glad they didn't, but
Do you think...
he just felt kind of useless.
Yeah. Do you think that he's going to end up with Elphaba so that Ariana's free to go with Munchkin Guy and Wheelchair Lady goes home with nobody?
I doubt it.
Doubt it.
Yeah, I don't know how that will shake out.
What are
guessing,
your love theories on
I'm
this?
guessing
Team
Elphaba-
Jacob, team... what are you?
Team Edward. Team Sparkly Vampire. I'm guessing that Elphaba won't get anyone. I'm guessing that she's going to corrupt or something. And then that'll be kind of the end there. I mean, considering the gal who was in the wheelchair, her sister, left at the end of it because the Munchkin guy was still oogling over
The
her.
6-foot Munchkin.
I know, yeah. The Munchkin.
Munchkin land.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't care for love triangles. I really
Yeah.
don't. I mean, there's movies where they matter because like it's a manipulation game or something. I just so don't care for them. And I really don't like quintessential hot guy characters unless they're played exclusively for laughs, which I can forgive this one because he was a little. But he didn't add anything. He didn't really detract anything. He kind of steered the story a little, but not really. And I don't know. He felt like a throwaway character to me. Mm-hmm. So, personally.
Yeah. I am just happy that there was at least... Character is supposed to be X, and they stuck to that on every single character.
True.
There's so many modern movies. I'm going to try to think of an example where character is supposed to be X, and then a quip happens, and now they are Y. Their purpose is completely shifted for a joke, for a whatever. And I think that happened a lot in Marvel movies. I think that's why there's still a sour taste in just having the handsome dude who ends up being nothing.
Yeah.
You
They
know?
feel just very filler, very malleable. And
The worst example is, or the best example is Thor. I think that Thor is somebody played by a super handsome dude who has all the muscles naturally to be able to play this god of thunder wielding hammers and stuff. And he was played for laughs constantly. And it kind of started to make me mad while I was watching the movie. I was like, okay, when's the joke going to come in? When's he going to get hit in the face or something dumb's going to happen to him? Or they made him fat for the last one, you know, so that he looked like crap. It's just like...
and maybe that's where it comes in with Ariana for me on this one. I felt like she never really had the moment where she wasn't that. She was the quintessential blonde girl. And again, I can't speak to how she should be in terms of how she's written necessarily, but like even at the end of the movie, she didn't really perceive to be like struggling. She was still kind of caught in her, like when they were having the meeting with the wizard and the Sorceress Supreme lady. She was still her. She was still ditzy and dumb, and never really had like that genuine breakthrough where she's like, well, she might be ditzy and dumb, but she has a heart of gold. Or
I thought that was the dance.
kind of,
Because
but
the
they
dance was that she stood out from the crowd.
right. Well, and yeah, totally. But then of course, I believe Popular and everything is after that.
Yeah.
And so they're still showing that she's plenty ditzy and she's still this kind of way. But even when they're going to the they're on the dock for the train and all of this stuff, she's still basically how she was before, just slightly less selfish. Still fairly selfish. And I felt like, especially at the end of the movie when they were going into defying gravity and everything, that she could have had a moment where there really was some true kind of should I do this? Should I not do this? Where if they're gonna add 12 minutes to a 4-minute song or something to make a 15-minute sequence out of a 5-minute one, I felt like she could have even had some ebb and flow in her heart.
You know, I
So,
could see
maybe.
that as the conflict in part 2. I really could, because they were
That's fair.
laying the groundwork with the love triangle, and with her, should Glenda stay with the establishment or should she be a rebel? All these things that I think were laying the foundation. But she was like, I still want to be your friend, and I'm happy for you for what you're doing and everything. I bet you that's how it'll change. Because at the beginning of the
probably.
movie, they show her post Wizard of Oz, you know, witch is dead and everything, and she's happy that the witch is dead, and she's the one who throws the torch at the giant statue and lights it on fire.
They all had thatch roofs. That made me so nervous.
So
Continue.
how does Galenda go from I'm happy for you going against the establishment and doing what you're doing in this moment, even though you're rebelling against what I've come to love, I'm happy for you, to then throwing the torch on the effigy of her friend that she was happy for.
Right.
And I think that's why I was okay with it, is because that does feel like the natural conflict of part 2.
100%.
You know?
But I feel like if they're peppering in a why should you come and see part 2, should give them a glimpse of that, you know, and be like, okay, Ariana, at the end of this, let's show that you are pining for being with your friend, that you're, you know, really a little bit torn up, and that maybe she isn't. I don't know. And you're right. Maybe it is completely contained in some amazing scene in part 2. I really don't know, but I feel like it could have given you a glimmer in that case and been like, you know, really, this is what's in her heart right now, that maybe she really does want to go. But, you know, there's truly the cold feet. It was done fine. But I remember thinking in that moment, like, okay, she's like, okay, bye. Okay, I guess this wasn't a problem. You know, you had more doubt going onto the train than you did here. Like, you had more back and forth of, should I get on this train? Than she did at the end of the movie when, well, my friend is leaving. But that's just me.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. But I'm trying to think of other things that were really stellar or really not stellar. Or other thoughts that I had that were, like, logistically weird. Did you have anything else?
Did I mention? No, I think I did. I was talking to Miranda a little bit on the way back from the theater and everything. Did I already talk about how I feel that the whole Emerald City scene was just their attempt to get an Oscar for costume design?
You kind of mentioned it.
Okay, yeah. So I do think that that's an attempt, like, purely that the Emerald City is just to get an Oscar.
You know what, though?
I
The
think they pulled
extravagance.
it off.
Yeah.
But it did feel like that to me.
That's fair, but you know, you go to Emerald City and it's the, like you kind of said, Hunger Games capital.
Mm-hmm.
It's the place where all the rich people are, where all the successful people are, where it is this like magical heaven-like place.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give it a pass, and I think that's mainly because across the movie, and maybe that's just because the whole movie was going for it. The set design was phenomenal. And the fact that, like,
Even the club.
Munchkin Land
They
was
could have ruined the
real.
club,
The
but yeah.
club, except for maybe the ceiling was real. Like, the set pieces were set pieces. Like, they were real sets that were really pretty and very intricate. And except for, you know, Defying Gravity and really right at the end of the movie, the CGI use was like set extensions or like CG animals or something. But the sets and the people, I mean, the whole library was a whole library, except for maybe the windows? I don't know.
Right.
And so, I was impressed. I agreed. I remember thinking about that with the Emerald City. I'm like, there's a lot going on here. Like, damn. But then I started looking at all the different costumes, like, oh, someone had to stitch that. And so, and like, they're cool and they're different and they're, you know, the color palette was very bright and very intriguing, very candy-like. And so that was all really cool.
Talking about costumes, did you notice that the prince's horse was wearing pants?
I did.
And they barely showed it.
Yes,
Somebody
good.
made the whole 3D thing
Yep.
and put that on and ran the cloth simulation. And then it's like, pants.
Well, I'm guessing, yeah, and I don't know. It could have been a real horse too, and they just did the talking face.
If they did real pants, I hope
might
that they
have.
did real pants. That would make me so happy.
Well, even like the donkey clothing, like even if it was CG, someone had designed that.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't, and it was a real donkey, someone made that, and like it was some cool stuff.
Interesting question for you. Since we don't know if the horse's pants were real or not, and the goat's must have been CG because the whole goat was CG. But for costume design, would CG costumes ever be put into the category going for the Oscars, or does it have to be something physically sewn in your mind?
Let's say that differently.
Yeah, so for getting an Oscar for costume design, could that ever be won by a movie?
by CG.
By CG costumes.
I doubt it. I don't know what the criterion is. I mean, most of the time, even costumes you try to do as much practical stuff on set as you can. And so it's possible that, they had the real goats and everything there for reference, and then they just completely redid them in CG. And so in a way, if the uppity ups at the Oscars are like, yeah, well, they made those costumes for reference material that showed up like costumes, maybe. I mean, they would know that, I suppose. But I know that half the time, I mean, it's a digital paint out if you end up going full CG.
Right.
And you try to do it for real, and you have all these artisans that made it just to have it slathered over. But that's a good question. You'd have to look at the criterion. I'm sure there's maybe something on their website.
Because I'm thinking for me, if you don't sew the damn thing and it ends up on screen, I don't think it should win.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Because it's different from CG characters or even animated
It's
stuff.
like, should Polar Express get, best costume design? Probably not.
Not really. Did somebody sew it?
Yeah.
I mean, somebody has to sew the
Should
thing
get best
or
visual effects.
whatever, So yeah, I just a question to ask just came
Sure.
to my mind.
Sure, that's fair. But the costumes were great. Sets were great. It was refreshing seeing real sets.
Mr. Goldblum.
Okay.
I'd like to talk about him.
Okay, let's do it.
Way better than I expected. When again seeing
He
the
was
trailer,
still totally just Jeff
he
Goldblum.
was Jeff Goldblum.
But
it
honestly,
the great thing, and I think it's got to be the director. I've mentioned it probably 3 different times about how character is supposed to be X and character was X. The follow through to make the character what they're supposed to be was great. And Jeff Goldblum was kind of just Jeff Goldblum, but it wasn't.
It worked.
It wasn't in a meme Jeff Goldblum. It was just Jeff Goldblum being great, and he was nice and he was fun to listen to, and you remembered why he got cast in so many things.
Right.
And like we were watching part of Independence Day the other day, and it was like, yeah, we like Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah.
When he's used for laughs, I can't remember what movie it was. I think it was like 4 years ago or something. But there was some movie that Jeff Goldblum was like another leader person, and it just didn't work. And it was kind of frustrating.
yeah, I don't think I've
remember
never
what it
seen him
was.
in a movie where I'm like, yeah, he's a serious actor. He's just he plays himself every
Plays
time,
himself.
and that's fine if you want Jeff Goldblum. And I was worried at first,
Yeah.
that like he started talking with his voice like, I am Jeff Goldblum, and you're like, okay,
At the moon over
Yeah,
there?
exactly.
Oh, his little moon dance was cute. I
it
liked
was
that.
Well, I
enjoyed
thought
that.
it worked because I mean, at the end of the day, the wizard is a con artist, and so someone who is a big presence but a weak man essentially,
Yeah.
works. And he's just this quirky dude, and it worked. I don't love him as an actor, but the fact that he can just play himself, and if you need a little Goldblum in your movie, yeah, I think he was fine. That's a great point though. Talking about casting, I know the director for this one was the same one for I think Crazy Rich Asians and In the Heights and stuff.
Really?
So not Ming Na Wen. Let's move on. What's her name? Michelle Yeoh. Yeah. Who was the sorceress lady. I didn't like her casting. And
Yeah.
it was less because I think she's a great actress. I mean, she's got an Oscar now, but I think she's a great actress. And I thought that her acting was fine. She couldn't sing. I didn't think she could sing. It wasn't bad. I mean, they definitely didn't like give her a solo. Like a whole song. But she was kind of the weak, because even Jeff Goldblum could sing.
Did a good job.
I didn't think she could super well. It was pretty rough, personally. So I think she
Yeah.
was well cast. I just don't think the singing was maybe right for her.
I think she needed more drama in the script to play with. Because there were times where she felt lost to me. I would agree that something was off.
She was a weird character in general, but yeah.
And especially since she was the one who started doing the propaganda at the end.
Yeah.
And it wasn't Goldblum. That kind of ties into how I'm feeling about, like, if Elphaba had just stuck around for half a second
Yeah.
and said, hey,
Just
let's not
bartered a
cage the
little bit.
animals, Goldblum might have been like, sure, whatever,
Right.
let's go.
Right. Well, and considering she was the only one that could read the magic book, like maybe she could serve to a page that like convinces him or something. I don't know.
Right.
I feel like there are better ways. She
were
has
better
the
ways.
magic book, and maybe it was the panic of the. I don't know.
And she was just like, I gotta go.
That was a cool book. I liked the double
That
hinge
was
book. That was a cool book.
It made it felt old and mythical, and it flipped when she walked up, which,
And the pages like lifted when she did spells. Like, that was cool.
yes, the art design on the book,
That was cool.
fantastic,
Anyways,
loved it.
yeah, I don't know. In terms of the casting, yeah, I feel like Jeff Goldblum was good. I didn't like Michelle Yeoh, whatever her name is. Just for the singing, I thought her acting was fine. I don't know. I thought the rest was good.
Yeah, you said that this was directed by the same people that made Crazy Rich Asians.
Yeah, same guy.
I would not have expected that, but because I really enjoyed Crazy Rich
It's a
Asians.
good movie.
It
It's a
was
fun
really
movie.
good. And again, they were able to keep the characters.
Yeah.
So
In the
this-
Heights, but I could see
haven't
where he
seen
could
The
get
Heights.
his musical chops from on that one.
Yeah. But yeah, it's good. That's I guess a good surprise.
Yeah,
To know
yeah.
that that's the same person that directed both
Yeah.
of those.
I thought it
movies.
was well directed. I don't know.
I did too. Yes, sounds like scores time.
Scores time. Let's do
Yeah.
it.
So we give scores to every single movie that we see. Daniel mentioned that we post them on Letterboxd. You can follow us at OTW Video Letterboxd or OTW Video on Letterboxd. Do you want to talk about them or do you want to cut
Sure.
first?
Yeah. So our categories, just to reiterate, we have 6 of them, and then we basically go through a score of 1 through 5 for each of the 6. We've each picked 3 of them, and we go through all of them, and then we take that entire average score and essentially make it into a star score. So our criteria are uniqueness, cinematography, story, execution, immersion, and emotional connection. So do you want to talk through or do you want to rate first?
I think let's cut. Yeah, let's cut and rate, and then we'll come back and talk about why we gave them the scores.
we'll be right back.
Be right back.
And we are back with our final scores. So let's get to it.
Yes.
Starting off,
Yes, with uniqueness.
uniqueness. So it's a unique movie. I mean, it's obviously a movie based off of an existing movie. So in that way,
Wait, let's back up. It's a movie based off of
Right.
a book about the movie that turned into a play that this is actually based on that play.
right. Hence why I'm giving it a 3.5.
Dude,
I think that
same boat.
I
Literally
think-
3.5.
Right, and if you zoom out and you take just the story on its own, it's fine. I would say that the plot points are pretty predictable and the dynamics are pretty. I mean, the fact that we could name like 5 different movies that are kind of equivalent to this, or movies like within this, it's a pretty common structure of a movie. And like I said, the themes kind of bludgeon you over the head, and so in that way, it's not super unique. I don't think. 3.5.
Yeah, for me, the only reason it gets anything higher than, or the only reason it got as high as that it did, is because I can't really actually picture another world that's exactly like this. You know, the Wizard of Oz created a very unique world, and they build upon it, and that's why it gets a 3.5. It loses all the other points because it's based off of a movie that had a book that was then written into a play, and that's what this is based off
Yeah.
of.
Yeah, and I guess maybe if you were to equate it to like, well, a movie that's the same story as like Macbeth or but retold in some different way. Kinda, I would say that's in a similar, like Lion King. You could say, well, that's just technically Hamlet, but like with lions. You're like, okay, but it's done like drastically differently. This is a retelling of a retelling, and even the story within it, like taking away the technical things that are like, oh, you have like witches and talking animals and like a cool universe. The story's pretty basic.
I'd agree.
So, okay. Cinematography.
For me, best part of the whole movie by my rating, 4.5.
Same.
We said they were having fun, that the Steadicam operators need a raise. They were doing such a good job, and you could see that there was the passion. I think literally out of the entire thing, I only noticed, honestly, I think it was one shot that just kind of was like, what was that? There was only, I think, one shot that drew me out of it.
That's fair.
And I think it was, that might be a good time to bring up favorite shot, least favorite. But it was that one shot. It was, I think, when the prince was talking to somebody else and the camera shoots back to them, the framing was just straight up off.
Oh, really?
Like their head was right at the top of the frame, and you could see just their body. It was really weird. It was completely out of place.
So that's your least favorite shot. What's your
That's
favorite
my
shot?
least favorite shot. Favorite shot. Okay, it's really dumb. I'm not going to say this is my favorite because we already criticized it, and I think how it got there is stupid. But the one that's sticking in my brain is her finale with the giant cape and everything. I can't say that's my favorite because of how they got to the big cape. So let's go to yours, and I'll come up with my favorite shot when you're done.
Okay. Least favorite shot, probably anything that was just completely laden with CG. So like the flying monkeys or her Superman moments, just because you went from a movie that was very physically based to just like full CG. And that's fine. I mean, you can't really, she was flying around on some wire rig, but like, so maybe the like monkey shots, I guess, I don't know. The best, anything in the major dance, I really appreciated that. I really did like was it Loathing? Which song was it? It was one where it was cutting between like 3 or 4 different locations. And one of them was they were within the classroom and they were moving around desks and dancing. I think it was Loathing. I don't know. The camera was completely handheld, moving through the sequence. I appreciated really any shot fairly equally where it was either a steady camera handheld shot within the moment, where you were guided inside of the moment and you were dancing with it. Any of that. I don't think I have a particular shot though, I'll be honest with you.
Cool. I'll take if it's a scene, I'll take the popular sequence, and if it's a frame, I'll take one of the frames where there's the prince being all smooth in the library.
Fair.
That set is just so cool.
That's true. Okay, so in the library with the spinning sets, there was one where they basically put it on the camera was spinning like counterclockwise while the set was spinning clockwise. That was a cool shot. And it was like pulling out.
Yeah.
And it was like fully practical, so they just had it on a giant like
Literally defying gravity.
yeah, exactly. Had it on like a yeah.
Cool.
So, okay, all right. So that's cinematography. Story.
Yes. Story. I gave it a 2.
Okay.
I don't know. It didn't
Wasn't
speak
your
to
cup of
me.
tea?
It wasn't my cup of tea. I just don't have much to say about it except for it just kind of did nothing for me. As far as the actual story goes, maybe it's because of our different lifestyles. I didn't go to a 4-year college or anything. So having the roommates like that and having to just deal with their quirks and becoming close through that, I can't relate to that. I didn't have that.
Wait, so what would you rate like Monsters University?
Like, well, you know what's funny is as far
Because
as,
when I was watching this, I'm like, this is just Monsters University with like singing.
you know what's funny is that I would have rated Monsters University story higher.
too.
I would have.
It was deeper.
So the story's just not that great to me, and I think that it's partially because that they have to follow the.
Logic of the original movie of
Yeah.
the source material.
And I remember hearing this, but I do think that the entire musical is an hour and 45 minutes,
Really?
and that includes a 15-minute intermission.
Not almost 3 hours.
And this part 1 is 3 hours, so the fact that they couldn't get it all done, I think
I
is
feel like
probably
maybe
why.
that's just Act 1 though, because like most musicals are 2 to 2.5
Yeah, I,
hours.
don't know, I
or
remember
longer.
somebody saying it.
Really?
I can't
Okay.
remember exactly, but anyway,
But either way, it was too long.
the story, because there's just is kind of how I felt about it too.
Okay.
That's what it gets.
See, I gave it higher marks less because I gave it lower marks in emotional connection for that one than I did for story. I think that as a story goes, it's unique. It's obviously kind of a classic for a reason. I mean, there's things that other people can relate to that I, like you, can't really. I mean, I did go do the college thing for a while. Obviously, there were no singing sequences, and they never went to class in this movie. I went to class, and I cried a lot because I went for engineering. But the overall story, it was cohesive enough for what it needed to be. I felt like it was different enough. It followed the source material to the extent that it could and can still have some logic behind it. Was it an amazing story? Was it a perfect story? I don't think so, but it was good. It was a story. There was a story, and there was forward momentum. So 3.5.
Nice.
So, okay, what you got for execution?
Execution, I gave it a 3. I think that the world is cool. I wanted to see more. I think that they did a good job introducing other aspects of the world that were not in The Wizard of Oz without making The Wizard of Oz feel completely like, without separating the IPs. They added to it without taking away from the world that existed. The cinematography was cool. I thought the acting was spot on. The weird interviews of Ariana and I forgot her name already.
Cynthia Erivo.
Of them crying every single time. It was weird, but
Well, and they're actually kind of lovers, too. And you're like, no, I don't think they are.
but to their credit, I mean, you can see why they got so close. The acting's kind of superb when it's them two on screen. So I think execution's a 3. It did a solid job. Nothing extreme, because the other ones detract from it. So I'd just say it's just a 3.
Okay. I gave it considerably higher marks, so I gave it a 4.75.
Whoa.
And the reason being is there are a lot of musicals out there where the musical is phenomenal, but it is horribly done, horribly executed in some way, shape, or form. And that could even be one you see on the stage where you're like, dude, I know this is a great musical, but that sucked. Like, that troupe was horrible. They butchered it. This was one of those movie adaptations where typically the movie adaptations of musicals fall quite a bit shorter than the like actual Broadway play. Like the one that comes example for me is I have kind of a sweet spot for the Phantom of the Opera movie. it's a pretty poor adaptation of the show as I know it. Mostly because the casting's a little weird and the music's a little weird. The set pieces are great and everything, but like, it doesn't quite live up to it. There's a few like that, and so this I thought was one where it actually took an already very popular play that's held in high regard for it and grew it in all the ways that cinema knew how to do, where it gave you these larger than life set pieces and dance sequences that were just as dynamic as a play and shot in the same way. And then it gave you those even more whimsical, like flying sequences and things. And although too much CG and everything, especially compared to the big sequences, I felt like it actually expanded on what was already good. So I think that it was executed to the best of their ability. I think this was easily like just a well executed musical, Broadway musical adapted to movie endeavor. I don't know. It was well done. So
Nice.
okay.
Next will be Immersion.
I got a little bored with the length, but I think that generally the intrigue and the interest to be sucked into this world was there. I was immersed. I could suspend my disbelief, and shots were pretty, and I enjoyed what I was looking at. Pretty much the whole thing. There was one scene where they went a little ham, like tinting the stuff pink. That pulled me out for a moment. I'm like, why is this getting? I know why it's getting pinker, but like this is weird, and it's the only time they did it. So there were things like that where there was just some weird choices, but I don't know. I was immersed. I wasn't like engrossed, but I was immersed sufficiently.
Cool. What was your score?
Oh, did I not say it? 4.25. Sorry.
Nice. I agree with everything you said, but I gave it a lower score. I gave Immersion a 3.5.
Okay.
I didn't look at my watch. That's one of our key telltales that gives lower points. And I was interested in the world and everything. I think it was just the fact that one big thing, and again, it's something that this movie is burdened with, is the fact that they have to use the music from the musicals. So sometimes, we'll have this really dramatic scene and it's leading you to a song that we know is coming. And all of a sudden the standard pit orchestra, drum set starts kicking in. And it's like, whoa, where are we at now?
Welcome to the world of musicals, man. That's how they do it.
So Immersion got broken a few different times. I think that the ham-fisted stuff that we talked about as far as the racist narratives or themes that went into it kind of pulled me out a little bit because, again, I wasn't sure if it was the director that was making this. It just made me question things outside of the movie itself. So Immersion got broken more than I would like, but I still really enjoyed the world, so that's why it gets a 3.5.
Fair enough. Okay. We got emotional connection.
Yes, I'm going to have you kick that one off.
Okay. I gave this one pretty low marks, and that's kind of where it deviates from story, where I think that the story is fine, but the emotional connection, I didn't connect with anyone. I didn't really care to. I mean, the moment where they danced was the most endearing scene in the movie. Sure, and I can't speak as someone who has any sort of, inherent history with being, pushed against in some way, or I'm definitely not fond of my looks, but like laughed at for my looks or something. Like, so I can't relate in that regard. I am blessed with a good environment and good people around me. And so on a personal level, I just couldn't relate. But even assuming I could, as not only a guy, but just me, didn't really care. It was a friendship story between two gals. It was well done. It was well told. There was plenty for everyone here. I was not invested in anyone super hard to the point where I'm like, yeah, she did get it, stick it to Oz and screw you. I'm like, okay, guess he's bad now. So I was like, all right, this make me feel something, y'all. Oh, score. Did I not say it? 2.5.
Yeah, that makes sense for
Pretty
what you
low.
said.
That's true. I just said low marks. 2.5.
2.5. That's why I wanted you to start, because I gave this a 1.
Ooh,
Yeah,
ouch.
emotional
I did
connection.
not relate.
I did not. I see. I mentioned that I had a lot of fun watching this movie, so don't get me wrong. I still think it's worth the watch, and whenever I'm looking for things, I'm trying to find what I call a weather stick. There's probably a better term for it, but I just call it a weather stick. Some way to, for myself, determine which way something's leaning or what's happening. So my weather stick for this one was The Greatest Showman. That's a movie that I really like. The Greatest Showman's so much fun. There's even some ham-fisted politics in that one too, just straight up. And whether or not it brought me to any sort of emotion besides laughter. You know, I got some laughter in this one.
Yeah, it was funny.
It was funny. That's why it's not getting a 0. But with how emotionally driven the story is and the crying and all this stuff, probably just emotionally connects with other people better. But I'm the one with you reviewing this movie, so I have to give it what my personal opinion is. And I didn't connect to it at all. The big moments, it was nothing, you know? I couldn't help but thinking about the theater geeks that would just be going nuts for the silence of the dancing scene.
As someone who is, I wouldn't say I'm a theater geek, but as someone who definitely is more ingrained in theater than you are, I appreciated it for the spectacle. I appreciated it for the music. Like I love the music, and I think Stephen Schwartz is a great composer. And the music is fraught with amazingly good. Maybe fraught's the wrong word, but is lined with amazingly good lyrics and musical thing. Like it's good music and everything too. But yeah, I mean, when it's a story that you can't really relate to, or really the characters you don't really care about from the offset, yeah, it's lost on you. It could be the best story in the world, the best music in the world, and like you could feel something because it's pretty music. But at the end of the day, do you connect with the characters? Do you connect with the story?
Exactly. Emotional connection. And to talk just a little bit further about the Greatest Showman, that's not what we're reviewing, but it's just, again, the weather stick that I chose. I have emotional connections to the woman who gets betrayed because she gets cheated on, and then she has her sorrowful song. I have emotion to their love story when they're, falling in love on the rooftop with all the bed sheets and everything. I have emotional connection at the end of the song, or at the end of the movie, when the bearded lady hits her freaking high notes, man, and it's so good. The bar scene, they're negotiating and stuff, but becoming friends through a negotiation. And it's just all of these different things. It's just emotional connection, emotional connection, emotional connection, emotional connection. And for this one, all of the big beats on the story, nothing. And I know it was in a good headspace for it too, and still nothing. So it gets a 1.
Yeah, I definitely related with the Monsters in Monsters University more.
Yeah. Okay, so my final score was a 2.9166 repeating. Daniel's was a
3.8. 3.
So that means, Wicked, we have given you some notes, and your final score out of 5 stars is a 3.3748, which rounds you to a 3.5 stars. So this movie is, I would say, good enough for a watch. I wouldn't call it amazing. I wouldn't even put it in a category of being one of the best movie musicals that I've ever seen. But it was good. Very average. If it was a full movie, I think that we could have had the conclusion and everything, and it could have been better, but...
Higher end of the very average, but yeah, I'd say so. Yeah, but that's fair. 3.5 is fair, I think, for this one. And that's coming from two guys who... I mean, I love musicals, I love musical theater, but, I'm pretty critical of them, and I'm not sure. Where do you stand on musicals?
Honestly, that's the thing, though, is that it's all in the execution and how I feel at the end of the day. Because when it comes to musicals, that is all about the music giving more emotion to something. Why the hell is somebody singing? It has to be for a reason, And if you're going to do a musical, that means that the emotion has to rise with it. Otherwise, you fail. And that's all I judge it on, really. There's the cinematography and all the other aspects. But from a musical standpoint, it's like what we talked about with Mufasa. Why were they singing? It didn't need to happen. And it lost points because of that.
Yeah.
With this one, I'm sure other reviewers would have given it higher scores because there were some, definitely you could tell that they were impactful moments. They just didn't hit at all for me. Yeah. So it's just kind of like, it's a musical and that's a thing.
Yeah.
Whatever.
See, and the only additional lens that I bring to that is just the known amount of work that it takes to put on a musical and being able to kind of acknowledge what went right based on that. Just knowing by how hard it is to do, not only in real life, but then in a movie. So it's sort of like I'm one of the rare few that I really liked the Les Mis movie adaptation.
I need to watch it.
Yeah, well, because
need
they did the live singing, and for a lot of people that's hugely horrible, but it gives you real emotion within those actual moments you're watching, where you're not just, because one of my biggest pet peeves with musicals is, especially in the older movies, you see it a lot where talking, very clearly ambient room noise and everything. And then suddenly super clean singing dial,
Studio edited.
Exactly. And they're there fairly poorly, usually, lip syncing to it. And so like when Les Mis came out and kind of shattered that ceiling, it's like, well, it might be controversial, but we're going to sing for real on these sets. And they're choking through their spit and they're sobbing and snotting, and it's great. And I love it. And then you learn about the technical aspect of like each of them had a little thing in their ear with a dude on like a piano in the background playing their part so they could sing to it. Like, I love that. That's so cool. Stuff like that. I give extra kudos to her because musicals are hard. They're so hard to put on. And, to do an effective thing where you're moving 200 and 300 people and then a camera and then playback and then effects and then all this stuff, like that's insane. Mm-hmm. And then to do that for 3 hours and for an IP that people love, trying to do so loyally. It's crazy. So, yeah, that would be my one thing for higher marks. So I do have a question, and I mentioned it to you. If anyone knows in the comments, I would love to know, because this bothered me the whole movie. Glinda does this thing. It's called, they're called malpropisms, where she basically trying to act smart by saying big words, and they're usually wrong. And it's something that Shakespeare does a lot. Where she'll say, basically it's close to the word that's real, but it's not a real word or something like that. She did that constantly. And I'm like, awesome. That's a great little character quirk, where she's trying to be smart and she clearly isn't. However, other characters did it too. Particularly like the classmates and things, that makes some sense. But so did like the head sorceress supreme lady. And I think even a couple other characters. So if anyone knows if this universe has like different words, I'm curious because I don't know why they did that. I don't know if you know why they did that, but I sure as heck don't. Why everyone was suddenly using like weird, and it wasn't like I said this to you too. It wasn't like the BFG or something where they're making up words because like he's a giant and he makes up words or something. Like it wasn't in that way that I could tell. But like, why was everyone doing it? Especially the professors. So let me know if you know.
Yeah, no, I'm in the same boat. It was a quirk of one character, and then as soon as other ones did it, so you're following, and you're like, right. Oh, that's kind of interesting.
Cool
she just does that. Okay, whatever. That's kind of like a cute thing or whatever. And then as soon as somebody else did, it's like, wait,
yeah,
what?
So is everyone dumb? Is this like a different language?
Yeah. Does that actually have a meaning? Because it was like close, but it wasn't.
Yeah, and they were always sort of like when you say like. I did something very, like grandly or right, where it's like, It's really close, but you're like maybe you did it in like a grandiose fashion, or that's kind of a bad example, but something like that, where they add like an illy at the end of a word that has never had that, where you just need to use like, it's like, you know what I mean. Anyway,
totally.
So if anyone knows, let me know, because that threw me way off. So, okay, that's all I got.
Totally. Well, whenever part 2 comes out, we'll be here for you. Let us know what movies you want us to watch in the comments. And thank you so much for watching.
And get you your giant cape so you can fly out on your broom.
Yeah, seriously.
It's got to grow like 20 feet.
Yes, watch my exit.
Yeah.
Just never end.
Get out the big room. I'll get out my vacuum cleaner.
Yes. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next week. Every Friday we're doing this, so make sure to subscribe and do all that stuff. Share with a friend, and rip us a new one in the comments. I will debate all of the those theater geeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You beat up on theater geeks, you band kid.
Yeah.
See you later, guys.
See you. Good night.